Hello, my fellow Milanisti. So it's time for part two of my season review. Today we will focus on Moncada and Scaroni. Now, I hear you ask, why would you put Moncada and Scaroni in the same pod? The answer is surprisingly simple. It's about timing. These two gentlemen joined the club around the same time when Elliott management were carrying out restructuring AC Milan following the collapse of the Young Hong Lee era. Moncada joined Milan December 2018. His claim to fame is well known to everyone. It's finding a young Kylian Mbappe. So, Moncada came from Monaco and he joined Milan as its chief scout. Within this role, he thrived. He was joined by Maldini as Milan's technical director and Massara as Milan's sporting director. Together, the three individuals worked to deliver quite a lot of interesting signings. So, summer 2019, some highlights are Rade Krunic, Theo Hernandez, Rafa Leao, Ismail Benacer, and Rebic. January 2020, the signings continued, and you could tell that these were three individuals working to put together something special. So they brought in Zlatan Ibrahimovic, then Alexis Salamakers, Simon Kjaer, and then in summer 2020, the signings continued with Pierre Kalulu, Sandro Tonali, and Brahim Diaz on loan from Real Madrid. Ultimately, these signings formed the backbone of Milan's Scudetto winning squad in the 2021-2022 season. The problem, however, with Moncada started in June 2023. Under the advice of Furlani and Cardinale and Scaroni, Milan ejected their greatest ever player and Serie A winning technical director Paolo Maldini. They also showed the door to a sporting director, Frederic Massara. In an increasingly toxic atmosphere, the decision was taken to promote Moncada to technical director and not to appoint an experienced and professional sporting director. My personal opinion is that this marks the downfall of the club. And the word to describe this, I've mentioned it before in other pods, is arrogance. Geoffrey Moncada took on a role that had never been carried out by him and used AC Milan as his testing ground. To spell out his role, as reported in the press, it was expanded to oversee all sporting operations, including scouting, transfers, and strategic planning. In my opinion, the role was always too big for him, and the next transfer windows actually started to demonstrate how he began to struggle with so many tasks. But this is a 2024-2025 season review, so let's move forward to our signings from summer 2024. Alvaro Morata joined us. Strahinja Pavlovic joined us. Emerson Royal joined us. Yusuf Fofana, Silvano Vos, Tammy Abraham. Perhaps the most embarrassing signing was a charitable donation to Tottenham Hotspur for Emerson Royal that took 2 months to negotiate. The fan base was screaming for a proven striker. The fan base was screaming for a strong defensive midfielder. The fan base was screaming for a right back with proven ability. None of these were addressed. Now, to remind you, in the same summer, Moncada and this team thought that the squad did not need CDK, Krunic, Kalulu, Kjaer, Giroud, Adli, Maldini, Pobega, Nasti, Colombo, Lazetic, Romero, or Salamakers. Of course, I will give you that some of these were due to players aging and retiring or moving to, let's say, less competitive leagues, or in the case of Krunic, players forcing a move out. When we look back at this, we now realize that Kalulu formed an important part of Juventus' defence, a team that has now qualified for the Champions League. CDK formed an important part of Atalanta's attack, a team that has now qualified for the Champions League. Adli formed an important part of the Fiorentina midfield, a team that finished above us in the league. Salamakers formed an important part of Roma's wing play, a team that qualified for the Europa League and finished above us. And we can say Pobega formed part of that Bologna squad that beat us in the Coppa d'Italia. I'm not saying that Moncada was solely responsible. Of course not. This disaster is truly a team effort, but he was a very important part in selecting those players to come in and enabling others to go out. The team performances on the pitch were abysmal, and what followed in January 2025 can only be described as Milan's first panic window. They spent heavily, brought in Santi Jimenez from Feyenoord, they brought in Kyle Walker from Man City, they brought in Joao Felix, the travelling circus act, they brought in Warren Bondo, and strangely, Ricardo Sotil. In a clear demonstration that the summer transfer window was full of mistakes, Milan shifted out their lead signing, Alvaro Morata. They also sent Okafor to Napoli, gave Calabria to Bologna, and they sent away one of our youth prospects in Kevin Zeroli. At the same time, they got rid of Luca Romero. And apparently, upon his own request, sent Benacer to France. This left the squad even more unbalanced and weakened the defensive midfield role even further. Of course, this will play a huge part in the 43 goals that Milan conceded in Serie A this season. Some of you will remember that at the same time, the manager was fired. A coach that had been heavily backed by Ibrahimovic and Moncada, and brought in Sergio Conceição, and asked him to get Milan into top 4, win the Super Cup as well as the Coppa d'Italia. These were desperate times. Well, the team won the Super Cup but failed in every other objective, finishing the season in an abysmal 8th position in the league and out of all European competition. Moncada famously gave an interview and stated that for him the best place to look for players was France. He is rumoured to have been attempting to create a core of the French national squad within AC Milan. Hence, Moncada has played a central role in the degradation of Milan's identity. I would say that as a scout, and solely as a scout, he seemed to perform, but as a technical director, devoid of the advice of a qualified and experienced sporting director, he has been disastrous. The famous images of Maldini and Massara sitting on the bench, watching the team train, giving advice and support at Milanello, replaced by Moncada and Ibrahimovic, are funny at best and depressing at worst. None of this made sense. Moncada is today apparently training to become a sporting director. For a long time, there was genuine fear that this man might try and become his own triumvirate. He has shown himself incapable to be a technical director, and the best place for him is to be demoted back to chief scout at the club, perhaps even to be removed. However, we all know that this won't happen, because he does exactly what he is told and works with exactly what he is given. Expect this summer's transfer window to be another mea culpa. No apologies will come our way, but players will leave in their droves. The arrogance of this man, combined with the arrogance of so many others that I will talk about in this series, is why Milan is where it is today. To my score. Moncada, for this season, 0 out of 10. F-. He is not a technical director, never was, never will be. If left to him, I am convinced that Milan would fly the French flag. And I cannot forgive another piece of the puzzle as to why Milanismo has been degraded within the club. I will leave you with a quote of his words at the end of the season. We are very disappointed with the season, but it leaves you with something for next year, to work and do something more. We are even hungrier now. During the season, we had ups and downs between Serie A, Europe. We reached the final of the Coppa d'Italia, but we are disappointed. I feel sorry for the fans. We have faith in Sergio Conceição. He has done everything for us. He arrived in January and it wasn't easy. We are here to support him today, and at the end of the season we will take stock of the situation. We have faith in him. He is a good coach. And finally, on a quote on the failed Futuro project. We created Milan Futuro to create players. We had 7 players who played in Serie A with Milan. Never before had there been so many from the academy. Playing in B, C or D is not important for us. For us, it is important to create talent. Milan Futuro will play in Serie D. Now, let's move on to Paolo Scaroni. Have you ever wondered why this man is our president? Have any of you ever asked yourselves why Italian Milan fans are really apprehensive about him? Personally, I've always questioned his appointment, and what was it about his past that Italian fans and Italian media appear to know about, which English-speaking pods don't even report on? I think it's important to understand a little bit about this man's history, and not just to focus everything on Maldini's words when he said that this man left matches early in order to beat the traffic. So, Paolo Scaroni was appointed by Elliott. He served as interim CEO of Milan before Gazidis joined the club. His role is supposed to be the man that links the financial management side of the club and the sporting. But did you know that Paolo Scaroni has been involved in several high-profile legal proceedings throughout his career? Whilst he faced serious allegations, interestingly, he was ultimately acquitted. But let me tell you about them. During Italy's Mani Pulite, in other words clean hands, anti-corruption investigations in the early 90s, Scaroni was implicated for allegedly paying bribes to the Italian Socialist Party. In 1996, he entered a plea bargain, resulting in a suspended sentence of 1 year and 4 months. The offence was declared extinct by Milan in a tribunal in 2001. As CEO of Enel, a gas and electricity power company, Scaroni was charged in 2006 with environmental crimes related to pollution from the Porto Tolle power plant. In 2014, he was convicted and sentenced to 3 years in prison. However, in 2017, the appeals court acquitted him, and the acquittal was confirmed by the Court of Cassation in 2018. Next, whilst serving as CEO of Eni, a multinational oil and gas company, Scaroni was investigated for allegedly authorizing $197 million in bribes to Algerian officials between 2007 and 2010 to secure energy contracts for Saipem, an Eni subsidiary. Prosecutors sought a sentence of 6 years and 4 months. In 2018, an Italian court acquitted Scaroni, finding insufficient evidence to hold him responsible for Saipem's actions. Next, Scaroni was also implicated in a case involving alleged bribes totaling over $1 billion related to the acquisition of oil exploration rights in Nigeria. In March 2021, the Milan Tribunal acquitted all defendants, including Scaroni, stating that the alleged events did not occur. So, although Scaroni faced multiple serious allegations over the years, he was ultimately acquitted in each case. I think you can understand why people give this guy a wide berth. None of these legal proceedings have prevented him from holding prominent positions, such as being our club president. Now let's move on to the current season. Paolo Scaroni acknowledges the team's underwhelming results, stating, "We're not satisfied with the sporting results." He emphasized the importance of participating in tournaments like the Champions League, the Club World Cup, as very minimum expectations for the club. However, throughout the season, he has come up with statements that are incredibly tone deaf. For example, he says, "Our fans are the center of our attention. Having them by our side is extremely important. Having them, even during such a difficult season as this one, is proof that we have what you would call resilient fans who support Milan even when the team isn't delivering brilliant performances like this year." But then he does things like say, "Although I must remind everyone, let's not forget, we still won the Supercoppa in the end. So I can't say it's been a completely negative season." Now, none of us should be surprised that these remarks are met with criticism. The Curva Sud said Scaroni is a total nobody and expressed complete dissatisfaction with the club's leadership. This loser attitude is what typifies this man. He is an Elliot puppet who will say whatever he is told. Again, he represents the confusion as to how and why the management team has so many individuals appointed by what are supposed to be creditors to the club. Then, here are quotes and lies that he publicly made on our fake stadium plans. At first, San Donato. There is a possibility of building in San Donato. We spent 40 million on it. Suddenly, out of the blue, yes, but there is a possibility of going back to the old San Siro project. It is a journey with difficulties and nothing can be taken for granted. The number one priority, however, remains San Donato. In December 2024, Scaroni completely shifted focus and said, "San Donato has become Plan B." Throughout the season, the man has flip-flopped. He has backed every decision by ownership and never stood on his shield. His public remarks are seen by the Italian fanbase as dismissive, tone-deaf, and self-congratulatory. And he spat with Boban, where he stated that it is Boban who doesn't know football properly, speaks louder than any other words he has said throughout the season. Finally, on my score on Scaroni, 0 out of 10, F-. For this season and every season he has been with us. He is not a president, but clearly an Elliot puppet. His replacement with someone who actually understands the club is essential to restore some kind of normality. I hope you enjoyed that, and please join me for episode 3, where we will talk over the coaches for this season, Fonseca and Conceição. Forza Milan!